Bleach, Thousand Year War, and all of that at the moment. So one of the things about me is that I love cartoons. I like cartoons. I prefer cartoons sometimes to mainstream movies and all of that, just to fun, just enjoy myself, laugh by myself, and learn new things and just enjoy. I like anime, but not all kind of anime. But Bleach and Naruto, just a few. For those who are anime lovers, if you know what an anime is, then you're welcome to my world. So at least you know one thing about me today. I'm a huge Manchester United supporter, but not a fanatic because I don't really care if they're playing rubbish at the moment. I could care less, but since 1999, perhaps even before 1999, I've started watching football. I've always been a Manchester United fan. Sir Alex Ferguson, not people who just got new DSTV and then they are saying they are fans these days. Since 1999, I've been following the Teddy Sheringham's, the Andy Coles of this world, and that's to tell you, like, I know a bit about football. In fact, I know a lot of things about football. Not football as it's being played now, but football has used to be. So yeah, that's one thing about me. I'm a sport lover. I love sports, not just football, tennis, um, basketball. I'm a huge NBA fan, even though I don't get much of the time to watch NBA these days. Um, and some other sports, indoor sports, outdoor sports. Generally, a sports person. If you are seeing my screen, I'm wearing on my Manchester United jersey. I always like to wear a jersey every year, even though if they're not playing very well. Aside from that, so you see that it's non-HR. There are things I don't do every day. I mean, there are things I do on the weekends that are never going to be HR things, right? Uh, five five working days, let's do HR. After that, I have other things. I relax. Another thing is that you might not know about me is I'm a huge console lover. I love playing console game. I like playing console games. PS5, PS4, FIFA. The days of what's the name of this? The name the days of PES, Pro Evolution Soccer, um, God of War, and talk about it. Call of Duty, and on and on and on and on. I'm a huge console gamer. I like to play games when I have the time, just to relax by myself or with friends. So that's just a few things I want to leave with you. So next time when you're thinking Manchester United, you would know that okay, this guy is a Manchester fan. Oh, he loves or he likes anime or likes cartoon, and then I play console games. I'm a Manchester United player or supporter. So thank you for allowing me to share a bit about myself. So how we ask people, tell us a bit about yourself, and then you run us through, tell us things about you and all of that. So that's a few things about me. Hopefully, you like it. Okay, so we have come to tech now. The tech is not taking in. All right. Okay. All right. So quickly, learning objectives today. Part of it is going to be around. We're going to attempt to understand diversity and inclusion, identify barriers and biases to D&I. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk to biases. I'm not too sure, but let's see how it goes. Practical tools for inclusive workplace culture. I hope that in our conversation, we'll look at these uh, practical tools, right? Like I said, I'm only facilitating. I'm not a subject matter expert. I'm sure there are people on this call who can speak to inclusion all day long, right? And then we'll look a bit about measuring diversity and inclusion. Okay. All right. Terms and definitions. Don't you just love it? So this is where I'll pause and ask us, please, can we go to the chat section and let's talk about diversity and inclusion. What is diversity to you, and what is inclusion to you? What is diversity to you? What is inclusion to you? All right, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm looking at the charts at the moment, and I would expect um, my partner today, Beauty, to also help if I do need you to just read a few things because I'm not really saying anything at the moment. Okay. Terms and
Yes, that's
definitions.
fine.
Terms and definitions. What is diversity and inclusion to you? What does diversity and inclusion mean to you? Anyone, please put them on the chat box. Put them on the chat box. Let's hear that. Beauty, you can help vocalize whatever it's being put in the chat box section. Anyone? What is diversity to you? What is inclusion? Come on, guys, we are facilitating this together. What is diversity to you? What is inclusion? I know that for the past 2, 3, or 4 years, there had been a lot of buzz on D&I, D&I, DB and high, DB and high.
Okay,
But
so
why
said, yes, Shadrach said, diversity to me is the variance in cultures, background, and experience of people in an organization.
Okay. Can you say that again? Yes. Variance in culture?
Yes. Variance in cultural backgrounds and experiences of people in an organization.
Okay, variance in culture, backgrounds, and experience of people in an organization. Thank you so much, Cedric. Olanrewaju, your hand is...
Okay, yes. First and foremost, diversity is taken from the word diverse, unlike the last definition. So when it's diverse, but in terms of what we do, we are looking at these variances with respect to sexual orientation. It can be age, it can be ethnicity, it can be what else? I've mentioned sexual orientation, whether it can even be generational difference, maybe you have a so just so. But what we are saying is that when we say we have a diverse workforce, that means we have representation of every kind of classification you can mention in a particular place or in a particular work environment. So that is that for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Please do accept people. I'm sure a lot of people are trying to join. Beauty, do we have another that we do?
Yes, we have. Noya said diversity is about the difference in people, example, race, gender. Then inclusion, still from Noya. Then inclusion is about harmonizing the diversity for a purpose of unity. Should I take that again?
Please take the inclusion again.
Okay, inclusion is about harmonizing the diversity for a purpose of unity.
Okay, harmonizing diversity for the purpose of unity.
For a purpose of unity, yes. That's what she explained on inclusion. Then we have from Philip. Philip said, diversity simply means accepting the differences amongst ourselves and including such differences in our engagement as an organization to achieve organizational goals and successes.
All right, thank you for that. Let me just go right along. So no, all of the definitions are actually correct. However, you were able to, capture it. I believe the intent is still the same. But I'm just going to read a few things from certain experts or some things I was able to come up with from research in a way that will help us to capture the essence of this particular session. Okay. So as it's on the screen, I will have to remove something here. Okay. Diversity refers to who is represented in the workforce. I mean, I just wanted to go for something very simple, something that you can live home with, right? Something that you can hold on to. Diversity refers to who is represented in the workforce, plain and simple. Who is represented in the workforce? If you want to just say, okay, what is diversity? Like the layman, in a way that you can start from the ground, and then you can begin to lay other tracks on it. So diversity refers to who is represented in the workforce. It says now, who is represented in the workforce now has to do with the different aspects of diversity. You could talk about, like I said, you could talk about gender diversity, or you could look at age diversity, right? Ethnicity diversity in and by itself, and then you have physical ability diversity, and then neurodiversity. Of course, when you're talking about gender diversity, you're talking about the spectrum. I mean, if I have my way, I would just put it to gender diversity as to male and female, right? My view. But as the world, as it is at the moment, right now, with the confusion in the world, right? With the confusion in the world, you now have to look at a different spectrum of gender diversity, from binary to non-binary, to the different alphabets that you have, and all of the LGBTQ, B, C, D, F, and all of that. However you want to stretch it, that captures what represents diversity, gender diversity for your organization, I'm all right with that, right? But if I go to that which is sacrosanct, I would just say male and female, okay? Age diversity, again, is something you're looking at. You're looking at the diversity across the different age in your organization. Of course, you want to relate age diversity to the different generations within the workforce. So that is age diversity. You also want to look at ethnic diversity, okay? If you are in a multicultural, like Nigeria is a multicultural country where we have, in the workplace, we expect that you have a lot of multi-ethnic, multicultural people being represented. So part of diversity in the organization could also cover ethnic diversity from the different ethnic groups in the country. Okay, and if you're talking of Nigeria, if you're talking of Africa and the world, you could talk about Hispanics, Asia, Ghanaians. I mean, the reason I remember I was on TikTok and I am Ghanaian. Of course, I'm a Ghanaian, whatever. Anyway, depending on wherever you're, and that's not a shade to people who are Ghanaians. I'm just saying that there are Hispanic diversity. You could be Hispanic. You could be.
Mary,
you could even
for
be.
us to do egg. Egg sauce.
Thank you. Please mute. You could have, even still bordering on ethnic diversity, you could have people who are, who are Latinos, people from the South, depending on where you are, right? The ethnicity of that environment, of that region, of your organization, if your organization is also spread across the different continents, would come to play here when you're talking about diversity. So you need to understand the context of your organization and then the different ethnic groups that are at play. Okay, you want to talk about the state of play as far as diversity ethnically is concerned. Physical ability has to do with people with what do we call them? I've forgotten. I don't like to call it disabled, but people who are physically challenged in a sense. So there could be also that diversity in your organization. And then the last one is neurodiversity. And that is really the diversity of thought. So diversity now has gone just beyond the gender, the age, the ethnic. You're also looking about the neurodiversity, where different people are able to bring up different thinking, diversity of thought, where the thinking patterns in the organization, is it diverse or is it just narrow, where everybody's thinking the same way because the diversity is not really captured in that sense. So again, diversity is what is about the what. It focuses on the makeup of your workforce, like I've said. Inclusion, on the other hand, which we'll still get to, right, is about how the creation of a work environment and culture that enables all employees to participate and thrive. Again, like I said, diversity is about who is represented. Inclusion is about how the creation of work environment and culture enables the employees to participate and thrive. Okay. When you're talking about diversity, you're talking about a mixture of differences and similarities, right? Individuals, it could be, and the differences and similarities could be individual, could be organizational, could be about background, the culture, the preferences, the behaviors. All of that is captured in diversity. I hope that your current understanding of the diversity, in a sense, have been broadened to accommodate what we're about to, or what we're having a conversation around this today. Okay. So let's move on. We're moving on to inclusion. So what is inclusion? Again, inclusion refers to how the workforce experience the workplace, okay? And the degree to which organizations embrace employees and allows them to make meaningful contributions, okay? We've talked about diversity in a sense, hold that thought, and then we're looking now at inclusion. And inclusion, basically, we're talking about how the workforce experience. Remember, how, don't forget the how. The diversity, remember, diversity is about who is represented. Diversity speaks to the who. Inclusion captures the how. So the how that the workforce experience the workplace, and the degree to which organizations really embrace employees, right, and allows them to make meaningful contributions in the organization. That is just it. Then you're looking at, according to Gartner, it says that the achievement of work environment, that is, inclusion is the achievement of work environment where all individuals feel respected, accepted, supported, and valued to the degree to which diverse individuals are able to fully participate in decision-making processes and development opportunities within an organization. That could be a lot. What they're basically saying is, according to Gartner, is that you need to look at inclusion as that environment where every individual, right, they feel respected, they feel that they are accepted, they are supported, and they are valued, right? That value is to the degree to which the diverse individuals, you see how diversity has come into play now, are able to fully participate in decision-making processes and development opportunities in the organizations. Okay, let's run quickly. I know that time is of the essence. So when you think about organizational stability, let me pause a bit. What comes to mind? Please go to the chat section and let me know, when you think about organizational stability, what comes to mind? And please, Beauty, once you see inputs, just announce or begin to say a bit, whatever you see. Thank you. All right, please, let's go to chat section. What does organizational stability means to you? What is it? What is it? What is organizational stability?
Okay, Abosede said it means sustainable system and structure.
Sustainable system and structure. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that attempt. Sustainable systems and structure. Any other person? Thank you, Abosede. What is organizational stability? What is organizational stability? Anyone? I don't want to call names. I know a lot of heavyweights on this call. I saw you guys when you entered. I saw you, but I don't want to put you on the spot. I might be forced to put you on the spot. What is organizational stability? Don't chat GPT this. Don't chat GPT this.
Okay, Sola said, to me, organizational stability means there is a well-oiled system that is very efficient. There is a well-oiled system that is very efficient.
Is it me, or I didn't get that?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Can anybody hear me? Is it me, or is it my network?
Okay, I can hear both of you, both Tolu and BT.
Oh, okay. Mr. Tolu, can you hear me?
Anybody hear me?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, you can hear me. So what is organizational stability? I think my network is a bit fuzzy, but apologies for that.
Okay. I said, Sola said that organizational stability to her means having a lot of fun. Okay. It means a well-oiled system that is very efficient. That is what organizational stability means to her. Did you get that?
Yes, I'm hearing something like a well-oiled system, isn't it?
Yes, a well-oiled system that is very efficient.
A well-oiled system that is very efficient. Wow, that I'm trying to place that definition, but thank you very much.
Then Olukunle said efficiency in all ways.
Efficiency in all ways, organizational stabilities.
Yes. Then
Okay.
Aboshade said, continuity, framework that lacks and has capacity to view the vision and harness resources to achieve the vision. Do you get
Continuity
that?
frame. Yeah, I got this. I got that. I got that.
Okay.
Um, thank you for the attempt. Let me just run along. But I would say that there is actually a concept such as organizational stability. You might want to maybe read up a few things about. But the things I believe you have the general understanding where we are looking at the ability of organizations to be stable, right? You're talking about the stability of an organization. If you just marry two words, organization and stability, stability from the word stable. And if you put it together, I'm sure you're looking at how an organization is stable, right? And that could mean several things. You're looking at the resilience, you're looking at how that organization becomes a going concern. However, you want to frame it in a different ways, right? I'm just using even my lean term, but let's see what it could be. Okay, network has come again. Okay, can you confirm you can see my screen, please, just to be sure?
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Okay, so quickly, organizational stability. I need to be sure. Oh wow, time is already going. Organizational stability provides the people with a sense of confidence, security, and optimism during times of disruptive changes in the workplace. Okay, think about how now in the business ecosystem, there's a lot of disruption going on, right? Economically, there's disruption. Someone's mic is, please, thank you. Help me mute that person. So I'm saying that the business ecosystem, as it were, right now is very volatile. A number of things are going on, from the war that is happening in Ukraine affecting us, Nigerian policies. If you're in Nigeria, how that government seems not to have a headway is affecting organizations. Things are skyrocketing. A lot of things, disruptions, even in talent, and a different things going on, right? So organizational stability is saying that it's a platform that provides the people with a sense of confidence. If you're thinking organizational stability, think about having a sense of confidence, a sense of security. I hope there's security today, but a sense of confidence, security, and optimism, right? During times of disruptive changes. And there had never been, today, like a time of disruption going on in the workplace. So I would say somewhat that organizational stability is very relevant in the times that we're in. And in another sense, organizational stability is the state of a company's financial, human resources, and productivity that has reached a threshold of steady growth in terms of the bottom line, the employee assessment rather, and development. So basically, we're saying that state where a business, a company is in, where the financial resources, the human resource, the productivity level of the organization is at a threshold, right, where there's a steady growth in terms of the bottom line, employee assessment, and development. That is organizational stability. Oh, by the way, I just want to remind you that, apologies, but I did have a background in psychology. So sometimes when I'm presenting, I usually like to link to my background, which is psychology. So sometimes I just like being in a way academia in something. So please forgive me if it looks like it's above the top. I hope you can relate with it. All right, so let's look at some research, and there are tons of research. Unfortunately, because of the times we have, it's impossible to reel out a lot of research, right? And one of the things I even enjoy is just burying myself in research. I like research. I like research materials. There are tons of research around diversity and inclusion that have been done. I hope there's something being done in Nigeria and West Africa. I've not really laid my hands on it. I'm sure AHRP might have done one or two things, but you know how it is in this side of the divide. But just a few things that I believe will interest you when it comes to research around diversity and inclusion, so that he would impart how you see diversity and inclusion in your organization and begin to think about how you can begin to implement it in a different little way that you're in. And so research says that most employees support diversity with overall sentiment. So the overall sentiment on diversity is 52% positive and then 32% negative. That means that in the workplace, there is 52% of people in the workplace have a sentiment to support diversity. That means that diversity is winning. Okay, thumbs up diversity. Okay, another thing is that there is, and that's according to research by McKinsey. Okay, there are clear correlations between diversity and business performance. That has been proven times without number, right? That there is always a clear correlation between diversity and business performance. That means that the more diverse the workforce is, the business is, an organization is, the better the outcome, right? I might not be able to say exactly if it's 2 times, 3 times, but for sure that there exists that correlation. Then it goes on further to say that the greater the representation, all right, the greater the representation of gender diversity, the higher the likelihood of outperformance. That means that businesses, organizations where there exists greater representation of gender diversity, there is the higher likelihood of outperformance. So notably is that the likelihood for outperformance continues to be higher for diversity in ethnicity than in gender. What that simply means is that businesses, organizations where there is a diversity, increase in the ethnic diversity, right? More than even gender, there is a recorded hard performance as far as business is concerned. So that means that if I'm using a case study of Nigeria, if we're using a global workforce, I'm using, okay, you have Mexicans, you have Asians, you have Tahitians, you have Canadians, you have Africans. If you zoom into Africa, you have different diverse cultures in your organization. If you're in Nigeria, you have Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Ibibio, and all of the. It's not that you just have just everybody just Yoruba. Where you have multi-ethnic group represented in an organization, there are being research that says that there is likelihood of outperformance. So the question is, what is the state of the diversity in your organization today? Do you have the diversity ratios in your organization? I think last year, even currently in my organization, when we're doing our analytics, and then we discovered that, of course, by nature of our business, but right now, even in my organization, we have more men, right? I think we are predominantly male, where the diversity ratio right now is not really favoring because of certain things, actually. There's still a long way, but that has to be deliberate, right? Diversity and inclusion is not hope. It's not something that you just wake up and you hopefully think that you would arrive at a proper D&I ratio. No, it has to be very strategic. It has to be intentional. It has to be deliberate. Okay. And then another research says that progress in building diverse workplaces remains stubbornly slow. Ladies and gentlemen, that means that we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. And that in itself could be a result of a number of things, right? It could be a result of whatever is happening. It could be a result of the context of the different organization, which we'll look at in a brief. It could be leadership. It could be sector inclined, depending. But the research says that progress in building diverse workplaces remains stubbornly slow. So, what are the barriers to D&I in the workplace? So let's talk a bit. Please, I want to see your comment in the chat section. Go there and type, these are the barriers. What are the barriers? What barriers have you seen in the workplace? It could be in your workplace. It could be peradventure in your research. What barriers? What are the barriers to D&I, diversity and inclusion, in your workplace or in the workplace generally? Please, let's have your inputs. Okay. I expect the chat to start buzzing. And yeah, Beauty, it's over to you again. Once we have respondents or we have responses, please just begin to mention or begin to say them out. Thank you. I'm waiting. What are the barriers to D&I in the workplace? What are the barriers to D&I in the workplace? What are the barriers? I believe Tony is on the call.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay, so Onyechi said lack of management support.
Okay. Let's go.
Ikechukwu said getting suitable and qualified people.
Okay.
Adife said unconscious bias. Then Babatunde said pregnancy, childbirth, and maternity leave or something. Then Adeyemi said nature of company's operation.
Okay.
Then Memisola said organizations not seeing the need for diversity and inclusion. They just want employees to work and go home.
Employees. Okay, go ahead.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I get that. Please, I got that. Go ahead.
Stephanie said not enough diversity training.
Not enough.
Very great. Training.
Mm-hmm.
Then Shamsuddin said lack of adequate awareness regarding the topic.
Wow, awesome. That is profound. Lack of adequate awareness
regarding the topic. Yeah. Then Olufemi Lola said office politics.
Whoa.
Philip said workplace bullying.
Workplace bullying. Wow.
Yes.
People are very, very, very shameless and smart learners on the call. That I honestly wouldn't have thought about workplace bullying. But
Abiola said communication issue.
Very true.
Gender stereotype and biased perception.
Very true. Very
Mohammed
true.
said the number one barrier to me is the individual employee philosophy and attitude towards workplace.
Okay.
Maximilian said lack of team bonding. Precious said workplace discrimination.
Awesome.
Adife said discriminatory policies.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm telling you, I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to capture it better than the input you have all made. And all of the things you said are true. There are barriers to D&I in the workplace. And so maybe one of the things the catch-22 really will be that what are we doing about it? Or how then, do we begin to find ways to overcome those barriers, right? If there are barriers like this stop sign is saying, how do we jump over it, or do we clear the entire barrier? How and all of that, so that those are the things I want us to begin to think about as we're looking at this topic, championing a diverse and inclusive workforce for organizational stability. Like I said, we cannot, I'm only just introducing this topic because there are quite a number of things I can't even share because of the time. But I believe that maybe more in the days, there'll be opportunities to talk about diversity and inclusion more and more, or in a different space. And that's why I'm just trying to engage us so that we have an awareness of what it is. But let me just go to my slide again. And these for me are a few, in addition to everything we've all said, these are the things I just want to call out. Unconscious bias and stereotypes. We live, or we could find ourselves in an organization, or we really do find ourselves in organizations where there are unconscious bias, right? And stereotypes. Unconscious bias could be a result of the different ways our background are different. Sometimes it could be a result of accent. Some people have some accent. Oh, you know what? Please make sure you don't hire anyone that has the Haru. It could be Haru, pronunciation, accent. It could be around, don't anyone that is in a particular wherever, don't hire them, right? That in a sense, you're already that's an unconscious bias that would affect your diversity and inclusion in the workplace. So we have unconscious bias and stereotypes. The question is, As an organization, as an HR professional in your organization, are you aware of the unconscious bias and stereotypes in your organization? I know that one of my core area is talent management, and you can't talk about talent management and not talk about recruitment, right? And part of what we also should talk about is how that recruitment is a tool, or recruitment is a tool through which you can level, right, the diversity when it comes to certain diversity ratio in your organization is a very important tool, because that is the entry point through which people get into your organization. So if you do not even have an understanding of the diversity ratio of the organization, you will not be strategic enough, right? Your talent strategy, right? Your recruiting strategy must have in it the diversity, must capture the diversity strategy. Let me use that word, right? Because if you understand that, oh, like I said in my organization today, we have more male than female being represented. Part of the reason is because of the nature of the business itself. However, that doesn't mean that it couldn't be better. So even now in recruitment, there is a lot of, from where I sit, right, from my perspective, there is a need to even look at that, to have my eye, or to have the talent team should have their eyes on diversity, to ensure that we are making conscious efforts to give more women opportunity in certain roles, right? So that we can also increase the diversity. But that's just about recruitment. But the core focus that I'm speaking about is around unconscious bias and stereotypes. The question is, every organization have their biases and stereotypes. Have you found what your bias in your organization is and the stereotypes, and what are you doing to it? It's a barrier to D&I in your organization. Another thing is intent without adequate action rather. You know, we have organizations where there's a lot of intent. We'll do this at this January. We'll mount it. You have a lot of, get the loudspeaker for the person at the back, right? Diversity and inclusion, SDG. We mount it, but what? Intent without adequate action. It's one of the reasons. It's a barrier to D&I in the workplace. Weak leadership, right? And that will speak to different around weak leadership. That means the leadership is weak, do not have the capacity, right? The capacity, the will to be able to enforce and institutionalize diversity at the workplace. That is very, very important. Weak leadership. Then lack of diversity in leadership itself. Because if you have an organization, if you have a business where the leadership itself is not diverse, there would not be any thought for diversity. I'm sorry, there won't be a thought to diversity in a place. And as I'm speaking, I'm even looking at an image of a certain company came to mind, and I'm just smiling, because where you have more, when there is a lack of diversity in leadership, right? And leadership here means maybe it could be your ManCom, it could be your ESCO or your General Executive Council, and where you have maybe 2 out of a 13-man leadership, if you have just 2 or 3 females, right? How big again is your diversity then? So when there's a lack of diversity in leadership, that's a barrier, because all the men in the room, I'm sorry, will be speaking the same thing. There was a time in this country, in Nigeria, where a certain executive council of that particular tenure had a certain ethnic group being represented across the table. So when I'm sitting here, we might as well just switch to speaking my native language, and that is the extent of the diversity in that particular tenure. It was so bad. It was so bad that the military infrastructure in that particular tenure had everyone in that place from a certain ethnic group. I'm like, for the life of me, that tenure is, I mean, you all know about that tenure, right? That will lack diversity, because if the testosterone in the room alone would not even help them to see the road in our balance, right? Because the leadership like diversity, there will be less diversity of thought in that kind of tenure, which really is. I mean, I don't know about the current one, but hey, we're still looking through it, right? Lack of diversity in recruitment. I believe I spoke to that earlier. Because I play a lot in the recruitment space, talent management space. Usually, I observe that many times we do not have a clear and conscious diversity strategy embedded in our recruitment strategy. In fact, quite a number of us probably do not even have a proper talent strategy, which again is a different ball game. We're not talking about talent today, but when there's a lack of diversity in recruitment, it will affect, it's a barrier and it will affect your D&I ratio, right? Your D&I speak in the organization. And then lack of diversity in policies and practices. I believe you all know what this means. If, again, we don't even have a D&I policy, how diverse, again, are we talking about? I mean, please, let the cows come and we can't even start, okay? So let's look at the barriers. All of that was just, well, a bit of that was more on the diversity, the barriers to inclusion or to diversity, okay? Remember, diversity refers to who is represented. Again, diversity refers to who is represented, and it could be age diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity. If you're playing in Africa, ethnic diversity. If you are global, then you begin to talk about the other diversity groups, right? The military, what you call the veterans in recruitment. Veterans is a thing in recruitment. If you're outside of the country, are you hiring from a particular community? Black Lives Matter. Do you have Hispanics in your organization? Do you have Asians? Are they represented? The different, all of that diversity, who is represented. Again, I said neurodiversity, right? And of course, the people who are challenged as far as the physical ability is concerned, are they also represented in your organization? That again is a diversity ratio, right? That we need to look. So again, we're moving on to inclusion, balance and inclusion. But just so that I know that I'm following or I'm being followed, can you just go to the chat section and say, I'm here? If you're following, if all of the things I'm saying is making sense, please go to the chat section and say, oh, I'm following, oh, thumbs up, oh, I'm learning. I'm looking at the charts. I need to see them buzzing. Or else let's just close everything and just go home. And let's go and watch Man City that is playing at the moment. For those who are football lovers, I'll do something else on Netflix, okay? So please, if you're learning something, if this is making sense, that, oh, Tolu, oh, this is making sense, oh, I'm learning something new, or wow, thumbs up. Please go to the chat section. I want to feel like I don't want to speak to myself. I want to believe I'm not speaking to myself. Please. I took time to do all of these slides, and I want to believe that someone is getting blessed. All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So let's look at the barriers to inclusion. I'm telling you, you will like this. You will like this. You will like this. Empty rhetoric. I tried to look for a word to capture Lamba in our parlance. I'm sorry if you're joining outside of Nigeria, if you're not a Nigerian, there's something in our culture, in our space that we call Lamba. And Lamba really means you're just serving that person, you're putting the person on hair. It's like there's a balance where we say you're pushing someone and then you are removing the brakes from the car. You're just pushing the person to go on slippery slope. Empty rhetoric. You're just mouthing it. Oh, boy, inclusion. Inclusion. It's just every year it's on the strategy, but it's just zero. It's empty words. Empty rhetoric. Oh, diversity and SDG, MBG, WEF is empty rhetoric. How many people know organizations, or maybe in your organizations, where there have been mountains around, oh, diversity, D&I, DB&I, D&I, D&I. But have you seen anything being done? If you've not seen anything being done, action-wise, that is all pure empty rhetoric. It's just buzzwords. It's just a cliched buzzwords. That's what it is. It's a barrier to inclusion, empty rhetoric. Another barrier is that there is no room for dissenting opinions. And this usually happens where you have certain people, right? You have certain people who really do not want, they feel like they are there, you know, we are like here, you are like there. And then when you're bringing an opinion, there's no room for that. It's a barrier where people, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I will, when there is no, in a sense, learner safety, when there is no psychological safety, right? When people cannot even voice their opinions on a work call, in a group, in a team that you belong to, that's no inclusion. There's nothing inclusive about that atmosphere. So where there is no room for dissenting opinions, it's a barrier to inclusion. And then when there is biased, informal mentoring relationship, and let me explain this. This means this biased, informal mentoring relationship, you know, think about where maybe you have a GM, right? You have a GM sales, and GM sales just like this particular guy, very sharp guy or sharp person. I don't want to use the word guy. Very sharp, you know, person who's a man, right? Very sharp man who's maybe one of a junior salesperson, and this GM sales is mentoring this particular person informally. It will get to a point where the person will have certain bias, right? There will be a bias towards that kind of mentoring relationship where the person just gets a particular kind of people, right? Oh, I just want men around me, men around him, you know. No inclusion or certain kind of people. Oh, where are you from? Are you from Ekiti? Oh, wow, you're Ekiti. I'm Ekiti too. Oh, wow. And then you begin to gather to yourself people in the organization who are from Ekiti, right? Oh, you are from Unilag. Oh, are you from Unilag? Oh, you're Babcock. You're Babcock. We're both Babcock. Oh, Babcock. You're Babcock. And then you're gathering to yourself certain people who are just from that space. That is a bias, right? So we need to watch these kind of things and find ways to overcome them especially when it comes to inclusion. All right, so let me run deep. We're pressed for time. Overcoming barriers, right, to diversity and inclusion. So quickly in the chat section, what do you think are barriers? How can we overcome the barriers to D&I, right? I would like to hear you in the chat section, please. How do you think we can overcome barriers to D&I? While you're putting all of your thoughts to the chat section, I will just run quickly. I will say that one of the ways to overcome barriers to diversity and inclusion in the workplace, okay, is to assess and define your organization's culture. Now, if your culture is not defined, it will affect, if it's not assessed and defined, it will be a huge barrier, right? But one of the ways we can overcome the several barriers you need to assess and define the organization culture, because all of the things that we're speaking about would have a leg on an aspect that deals with your organization's culture, okay? Another thing, again, is to listen closely to underrepresented groups. So at the baseline, the question is, what is the data saying? If you do your people analytics, what is the data saying? I know that in our people analytics, we probably have now, again, if you are in the role of a talent leader in the organization or a people analytics, I mean, those who are people analytics enthusiasts, or you're a specialist or you're a leader, I think there probably will be a few Nigerian people analytics leader, because I'm on LinkedIn and I can't see your tagline. So I won't say nobody specifically right now is a people analytics leader in Nigeria. Maybe there will be 2, 3, or 4. Not really. But I would say people who are specialist enthusiasts, right? Or you sit in the position of a CHRO, or you're an HRBP. Okay. So you have now, when it comes to diversity and inclusion, you need to put on that cap, because it's a cap you have to put on, right? Because in a sense, if you're doing your people analytics, which you call your workforce analytics or your talent analytics or your HR analytics, whatever you want to call it, if you're looking at it in a sense, you could be, if you're not wearing your D&I cap, what you just have is you have gender, you have age, you have different, maybe we are in different regions you are in. All of that is what will be represented. But when you're now doing D&I people analytics, you need to drill it down, right? You need to move from the male and female data to go to the ethnic data, right? Who are the people represented in your organization? You need to look at the diversity of representation in your organization, to the point of even calling out the different ethnic group. If you really want to really practice being a D&I person, you need to call it out, right? You need to call it out on your D&I, right? If you're in Nigeria, it's very simple. How many are from this particular region, right? You want to look at the different geopolitical zones. You're calling it out. You want to look at the different ethnic group. You're calling it out. Especially if you're talking about diversity in that particular sense. Okay, if you're looking at the diversity of the physical abilities, you need to X-ray it and call it out. That is where you're zooming in, right? It could be a lot of work. For those who have certain HRS, wow, that's your advantage. If you have those, what's the word now? Points, right? If you have those particular critical areas being filled, or if you have those fields marked in your HRS, if your HRS can call it out and put it to you in a format, then fine, then you can work on it and fine tune it. But you need to listen closely to the underrepresented groups in your organization. Then another thing is to educate your leadership team. Maybe more than organization culture, another this educating your leadership team is very important, right? If the leadership team is not properly educated, and I think someone spoke to it earlier when we were speaking about the different barriers, right? If your leadership team is not educated when it comes to D&I, it will be a huge problem, because if it's not driven from the top, it's dead on arrival. So one of the first things to be done is to ensure that the leadership team is even aware and be properly educated when it comes to, you need to be able to help them to sit and tie it up to it. If they need to go on a training, they need to, or a particular course, they need to go. The key people that matters, right? Or if you're the CHRO, if you're the head of HR, you need to bring that ratio. You need to bring that information to the ears of your line manager. It could be your COO, or it could be your CEO, and let them begin to know. Let them begin to start that journey to educate your leadership team about D&I. And then you need to understand that it's an iterative process. In other words, being on the average score of D&I is not going to happen overnight. So it's a journey. If you even don't have the data to even state where you are, you need to start from even harnessing the data right now to say, okay, let's begin to build data some sort of data, right, to know how to properly measure and capture D&I, right? And then you need to start judging and map up that journey. So it's to understand that it's an iterative process. It won't happen all of a sudden tomorrow. Because even though you could have inclusion in terms of maybe some level of diversity in terms of the gender or inclusion, there will be other things around inclusion in your organization uniquely that you need to look at and needs to be addressed. And it's a deliberate effort that the leadership team needs to drive. Maybe HR will facilitate, whatever that means. And I wanted to just quickly point out the fact that there is actually something as a D&I strategy. Okay, you cannot have a D&I initiative if it's not anchored on a D&I strategy. In my learning of HR, right, I have come to understand that your initiative is better if it's anchored on a strategy. Your initiative is better in actualization if it's anchored on a strategy. So find your D&I strategy. The question is, you could have a D&I policy, but do you have a D&I strategy? As Mike and I used to talk when we're talking about talent management balance, right? We all usually say that your talent management philosophy drives your strategy, and then your strategy drives your initiatives. Okay, just look at that saying. It's simple. Your philosophy will inform your strategy. Your strategy will be, your initiative will be an outflow of your strategy. So even before you have your policy, so don't just, it's good to have a policy, but you might need to do a reverse back, to do some sort of reverse thinking to find out that, do we have a philosophy? What's our D&I philosophy? Do we have a philosophy? Like, it's a platform on, like a bedrock, through, on which your diversity and inclusion, let me use the right word. I'm trying to find it. Your diversity and inclusion actions, right, will thrive. So find a strategy or define a strategy for your D&I, right? Let it be anchored on philosophy. Philosophy is not hard. It's just a way of thinking. It's a thinking, your thoughts. The way your leadership thinks about D&I is your philosophy. It's simple. Just sit down and craft a philosophy, or if there's already, there exists a philosophy in someone's head, help them to put it together and have the words around it that captures what that is. And then from that philosophy, have a strategy for your diversity, depending, and that would be a context, that would be a context of your organization, it would be the context of your sector, it would be a context of your workforce, right? Your workforce, wherever you play. So that will help in helping you. That will help you in coming up with a strategy, right? And then you can now have your initiatives. Initiatives are very easy to do, right? It would also be situated around the context of your environment and where you are. So my initiative, my D&I initiative, might be different from yours, right? Very soon we're going to be having International Women's Week, women's this one, women that one. All of that are initiatives, or could be all of that are initiatives of, you could subsume some of that under D&I initiative, right? Because you're trying to now call out a few things, in your organization that speaks to inclusion and diversity. So the different days to celebrate and all of that. You could even have a D&I calendar, right? I'm not even getting nowhere with this thought. You could have a D&I calendar that tells you who does what. But maybe something to stress is that I've seen organizations that do and celebrate a lot more about women. International Cancer Day, International Women's Day of this one. And then when it comes to men, it's almost an afterthought. This is 2024. Please help us, right? This 2024, let men also be represented in your D&I initiative, right? Very true. Let the men be represented. Okay, I know if it's a woman talking today, you'll probably be saying let the women be represented, but hey, let the men be represented. So all of that is just to speak to strategy. You'll be glad to know that my slide is slowly coming to an end. One of the things you don't know about me is that, like I said, maybe I mentioned it. Aside from being a sport lover or sports fan, right? I like Formula One, and I chose this picture because of a certain news that happened recently, that Lewis Hamilton, who is on the Mercedes-Benz team, come 2025, will be moving to Ferrari. Okay, so the GOAT is about to switch team rather, to join the Ferrari. Don't worry, if you're not a sport fan, it probably don't mean anything. But what I'm actually about to drive here is that, what are the drivers of D&I? Lewis Hamilton is a fantastic Formula One driver. Fantastic Formula One driver. It's not winning at the moment, but he's a fantastic Formula One driver. But I put all of these out to say, what are the drivers to D&I, in the workplace or in our organization. But thumbs up to you if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan. If you're not, please join us and be a Lewis Hamilton fan. All right. Okay, so let's see. What are the drivers of inclusion? Fair treatment. I'm just going to, I'll probably want to explain this more, but fair treatment, right? Organizations that have fair treatment, you always see inclusion properly engendered, right? It's a very good driver of inclusion, fair treatment, integrating differences. And again, differences could mean several things depending on you, depending on your context of your business, of your sector, or where you play at the moment. But integrating differences, right? Organizations in where you have where there are proper integration of differences, there is usually a greater acceleration to inclusion, right? Decision making is a very good driver in inclusion. That means that you have teams where people are able to make decisions, right? They're able to make, or where they are being called into certain decision making process. It's a driver to inclusion. Where there is psychological safety, we cannot talk about, we can't talk more and more overemphasize psychological safety rather. We could have a whole session on psychological safety, the learner safety, inclusion safety. What's it? There are about 4 steps according to Dr. C. Amy Edmondson and Dr. Timothy R. Clark. Those diversity boxes are very important. Learner safety, inclusion safety, all of that. In fact, there's an inclusion safety when it comes to psychological safety. That is very important. It's where there is psychological safety, then you can drive inclusion better. That means that in your teams, and the reason why I'm stressing this is because we've passed the place where HR does a lot of things. We're at the place where line management needs to drive things. And so all of these things is to arm us with understanding so that you can harm line managers to begin to really drive the inclusion. So in certain teams where you find that the diversity ratio in certain teams are very low, you need to drive that in the line manager. It's a conversation you need to have with the line managers or with the leaders, with certain teams, team members or team leads. There could be certain teams where there is no psychological safety. That means inclusion in that team will be the inclusion the member of that team is experiencing will be different from the inclusion in another team. Very important. Trust. I can't talk a lot about trust because, man, we're in a place where nationally, I'm sorry, in Nigeria, our trust index is 0, right? Nationally, we do not have our trust barometer is in the negative as far as the nation is concerned. There's the Edelman Trust Barometer that measure the trust index across the geopolitical representation across the different country. You might want to go and type Edelman Trust Barometer 2023. There could be 2024, right? I'm sure there's 2023, there could be 2024. And just go and find where Nigeria sits when it comes to trust, right? Nationally, when we have been passing through a governance structure where people don't have trust nationally, right? In the in the governance of the country. And then you expect, and of course, it will always be from the ecosystem. At the top of the echelon is the national. Then you now come to the state, you now come to the organization. And from the national to the organization, you've come certain steps, right? So if the trust index nationally is even low, that means that as an organization, we need to do more because already the context of our trust is in the negative nationally. So we need to be doing more. That means your escape velocity to get it from the place of ground zero to thrust to where people can, there can't be a lot of trust in the organization. You need to do more. The trust velocity to get from the ground zero to where you need to be doing more in terms of driving trust is more. So there is a huge weight on organizations today to ensure that the trust level is increasing. And so for me, it's usually a bother to me when nationally we are in the negative, right? We're in the negative as far as I'm concerned. We're in the negative as far as trust is concerned. Nationally, we have governments over the years that are lying to us, that say they will do something and they don't do it. And then the organizations also now form a form of mistrust, right? And then at the back of that, someone will now come to me and say, oh, by the way, can we see your pay slip? And I'm like, hold on. You expect me to trust you when I have a government that is lying to me? Help me make it make sense, because the ecosystem in which I live has no trust, but you expect me suddenly to come and trust you where you have also not given me the platform to be able to trust you. Oh, by the way, did you also tell me about this role? Is there some pay range? I know I'm speaking to myself and I'm speaking to everybody, right? We need to do better. That's just the point. As far as trust is concerned, nationally, we're not doing well as far as trust is concerned. Leadership, in terms of leadership, we have leaders across organizations that people don't have trust in them. And inclusion will not fly when people don't have trust in your leadership. So we need to do more in ensuring that we are hammering on psychological safety and trust in our organization. All right. I want to believe you're learning something because I'm coming to the end of my session. Like I said, there's a number of ways to look at this. We could camp around recruitment alone and talk about diversity and inclusion when it comes to recruitment, how that recruitment is now a channel, is a portal through which diversity is being properly channeled. You can channel the diversity ratio in your organization through recruitment by having proper D&I strategy, by having even proper D&I policy when it comes to recruitment. Even your recruitment policy, you need to have some sort of D&I there. That's just in the sense. I could take you further because I'm a talent management expert. I could take you further and go as simple as saying that when you're couching, right? And I see this because I see this across different what's the word now? I see this across different groups where we push out what's the word? Job descriptions. No, not description. Job attraction. When we're attracting people, we are the kind of language we use in our job description, the kind of language we use even in attracting candidates needs to do a lot more with D&I. Needs to do a lot more with D&I. We use certain words that are more masculine, right? I need a strong candidate. I need a strong candidate. A strong, anything that has to do with strong. When I hear that word, my D&I brain is just going like bum, 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 bum. I need a strong, like, please, right? So we need to go even as simple as granular to go into our recruitment, okay, to your attraction words, right? To your recruitment. Go back to your recruitment marketing content. Ensure that it's properly captured, right? It's properly couched to be neutral. There are certain words today. Thank God for ChatGPT. People who still are not maximizing ChatGPT, Copilot, and all of these platforms or tools in a way to make certain words gender neutral. There are certain words there are certain things there's a way you can couch a profile or a word, something you're trying to put out there to source that it will be gender neutral. And when I mean gender neutral, I don't mean the gender binary. I mean that the way that particular profile or that recruitment advert or that job advert is being pushed out, it will not sound so masculine, so that females will not be deterred from applying. There's a way. If you want to get your if you want to get more women to apply to some roles, there's a way to couch it. There's a way. There's a manner. The feel. There's a way you come around it with the recruitment marketing, and that's it. That's a point in recruitment marketing where the words you frame in your job adverts, they are not masculine, they are just soft, right? There's a way, gender preferred, all of this, so gender is preferred, and all of this. There's a way, but even not saying gender preferred, there's a way you can say it. I'm saying that because I practice it. There's a way you can do it. But people just do cut and paste, just do cut and paste. So you say, let me use the one that was used last. And then you're not saying, it's only men that are applying. No, there's a way. Ladies and gentlemen, this is 2024. We need to do better. I'm saying that we could look at that recruitment and just sit on recruitment on diversity, and then we could look at several things. But we could just look at the key considerations as I'm about running off this session. One of the things I believe that in championing a diverse and inclusive workforce for organizational stability, you need to help line managers set targets for their teams. Okay, you've looked at your people analytics ratio, you looked at the diversity aspect of people analytics ratio, you've looked at certain teams, that this team is always men, or certain race, always Yorubas, always people from Igbo, always so from each country, always Ekiti, always Egba people. Once you observe that, say, hey, you need to go and have a very good conversation and set the target for that line manager. That means that when the conversation around recruitment is happening, you need to ensure that those people that you have, the candidates are from a diverse pool. So that means that diversity must also be in your talent pool, right? There must be some sense of diversity in your talent pool. Very, very important. Okay. Can you mute? Someone is saying something. So define your target group. In helping line managers to set targets for their team, you need to define your target group. Okay. And when setting targets, assess your current state internally and externally. Assess your current state internally and externally. I hope you can hear me well, because I keep hearing there's an intrusion. I hope it's not from my hand. Okay, but I'll just move along. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can. Okay,
awesome. So next thing is predict the likely changes. And the reason why I'm just speaking through them, predict the likely changes too, and study the impact of various decisions on rates. That means that you look at your staff numbers, you look at your turnover rate, you look at your people analytics, your rates essentially. Look at the changes that will likely happen, right? So when people leave our organizations, I believe there will be resignation, people have left, or attrition, whatever it is. That would throw up certain rates for you. Now, when you look at that, you need to now sit back and say, okay, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to get in certain diverse kind of people in my organization. So you need to predict, right? I know that we are playing catch up when it comes to people analytics in Nigeria. I'm sorry, we are playing catch up in people analytics. We're just getting from the place of metrics to analytics. We're not really doing predictive analytics yet. And I stand by my words. We are not yet doing predictive analytics as far as Nigeria is concerned. And I can say it, we're not yet predicting. We're doing metrics, we're analyzing, but we're not predicting, as it were. And it's very clear. But I'm saying that wherever we are, we can begin to predict from where you are. Start from where you are and begin to predict the likely changes and study the impact of the various decisions on the different rates. And I said the rates could be your staff turnover, your retention rate, and all of those things. You need to be able to predict, okay, based on this, where is the diversity pendulum swinging to, and then be able to position yourself there. And then set time frames for achieving targets, because you're speaking to line managers, right? You need to be able to set time frames for achieving those targets. So you say, oh, by the way, Kunle, I observe that you have people from you have mainly Yorubas, right? You have mainly Hausas, or you have mainly people from a particular inclusive dimension from in your team. So help them to set a certain time frame. I think with the next recruitment coming, you need to what's the word now? You need to make that team diverse. So help them set time frames for the targets and then clarify accountabilities in ensuring that they follow through. Because if left to some certain line managers, they'll keep bringing certain kind of people into the organization, right? Whether as far as diversity dimension is concerned or inclusion dimension is concerned, you need to be able to set accountabilities for them. That's why we are sitting where we're also a gatekeeper when it comes to recruitment, right? I mean, you are some sort of gatekeeper. So help them set time frames and have those conversations, especially when you have a buy-in from senior management, right, from the leadership. Once that is already set, then help them to set that target and clarify responsibilities. It could be across 2 years, a year, whatever, so that you are seeing that thing being changed. I believe that makes sense. I believe you've learned one or two things. And finally, as I round up this session, part of the things that I mentioned that we're going to be able to do is to be able to measure, right, diversity and inclusion. There are ways to measure diversity and inclusion, but it starts from first laying the tracks. Right, you must be able to know what diversity and inclusion means for your organization and start from the ground zero. Lay the tracks. If you don't have any right now, then it's a good place to start. Lay the tracks, right? Dig into the different diversity, what diversity means for your organization, what inclusion means for your organization. How would you want to represent it? You have your HR dashboard, right? And if you have a HRS, superb. Let your HRS, in a sense, be able to give you some data that you can maybe go later and clean up and now drill further. Your HRS might not be able to show you diversity by virtue of the fact that where we are at the moment in Nigeria, we don't have too many vendors doing all of that. But when you have that information, now sit down and now break it down and zoom in to really find out, okay, what in terms of diversity, right? What do I want to show? How do I want to track it? So what diversity means to you, it could be around generation, it could be around physical ability, it could be around ethnicity. You want to call it out and begin to measure. You want to measure across regions. You could measure across regions. You could measure across business units. Yeah, you can measure diversity across business units. And you'll be able to say, okay, the reason why we have this spike or we have this increase or we do not have, we are above in terms of D&I in these units because of this. You are going further to justify why that is. And when you are showing your HR dashboard when it comes to diversity, you are representing what matters. In a case where you want to show the people that we're not, by the way, we're lagging behind as far as diversity is concerned, you need to be able to use your dashboard to be able to show that. So lay the tracks for where you want to go in your journey. Because it's an iterative process, lay the tracks, start from ground zero, know what diversity means to you right now, know what it wants, what the organization has said, this is what we define as far as D&I is to us, then begin to find ways to measure it, right? Data, not Naira Kobo, numbers, right? Numbers, the representative community in your organization, ethnicity, age differences, and whatever inclusion means to you, you want to be able to project it, right? All of that, if it's a journey, but starts from where you are, you can actually measure. There are several reports. If you don't know how, maybe if you're doing something, you're just gathering data, you're doing some analytics, metrics here and there. If you want to maybe increase, right, or move from a level of maturity, So the maturity level where you are right now is level 1. You want to move to level 2, right, where you have metrics, or level 3, where you're sort of analyzing now. Then you need to be able to find data and start that journey and stay to that journey, and then get the partnership. Ensure that the line managers, the people that are concerned, are also working on diversity targets for their teams. I believe that if all of this is done, it would help in championing, right, a diverse and inclusive workforce. Remember, we've agreed and we've seen research that says that where there is some sort of diversity and inclusion, or especially on diversity, there had been a likelihood of outperformance, right? So that means that the more diverse we are in our organization, the more performance, right? The more in terms of performance, even in terms of diversity of thoughts. And because of time, I couldn't go to how diversity, right? How diversity, what's the word now? It's not activates. How diversity spurs, right, innovation. So it means that the more diverse we are, the more innovative we can be. Because in terms of neurodiversity, if we have people thinking differently in different ways, different patterns of thinking in a room, the more we can come up with solution. So that reduces groupthink, where everybody's thinking the same way, right? If we're all from OAU, you will be thinking from a certain way. You have the OAU guy, you have the Adekunle Ajasin, you have the guy from Babcock, you have the guy from Ondo State University, different people. That's just around academia. If it's ethnicity, if we have diverse ethnic in the room, innovation, right? Even across generation, the way the baby boomer will look at an issue will be different from where the millennial will look at it, will be different from where the Gen Z will look at it, will be different from how the Gen Alpha will look at it. When we have that kind of thinking, diversity of neurology, of thought, diversity of thought in the room when it comes to our innovation, or when we're brainstorming, even in our different teams, it helps so that people can come up with different things, because people, consume things differently, right? So because I consume things differently, I consume quite a number of things. It will be different from someone who doesn't do sports. There could be someone in this call who's not into sport, you're not into anime, you're not into console games. All you just do is read, sleep, and eat, right? You probably like watching Food Channel, Nat Geo World. Something around that would bring a different understanding when we get into the room, because of where you look at things and how you look at things. So my point as I'm ending today is that there must be diversity of thought, right? Just as you see in this group, in this picture, you're looking at a McLaren, Mercedes-Benz. In yellow, you are seeing the Lamborghini. You're seeing the I believe this should be is this the Aston Martin, or the other one is Ferrari? This could be the Aston Martin or the Koenigsegg. I think this is the Koenigsegg Agera, right? You're seeing doing the another Ferrari there, and you're looking at that's the McLaren at the other side, the GT McLaren and all of that. So there is a diversity, different colors. We need that if we're going to have and achieve organizational stability in our workforce today. I believe that with these few points that I've been able to somewhat perhaps challenge your thinking, and to be able to add to you today that and this has been a good time where you feel like, oh, I've learned something, or I've learned something I used to know before, maybe in a different way. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for sharing your time with me. And yeah, over to you, Beauty. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. So everyone, please, a better round of applause for Mr. Tolu Ajayi. Thank you so much. It's been over 1 hour section of knowledge field section, and I know everyone. I can even see how people are appreciating the section. That means learned a whole lot from your section. Thank you so much, Mr. Tolu Ajayi. We really appreciate, and also the slides. Thank you for giving us all those making us to get to know a bit about you aside the HR thing that you do. Thank you a lot. So now it's time for us to ask our question. Please, if you have your question, kindly drop them on the chat. And if you have anyone you want, you can just raise your hand if you can drop them on the chat so that Mr. Tolu can be able to answer them while we round up the section. Please, can we start questions, please?
And let me say that it's okay if you don't have questions. Like one of my boss would say, it's one of two things. It's either I've said very good things and everybody's at par, everybody understands it, or I've said total rubbish. But I'd like to go for the first one.
Yeah, of course. We'll take the latter. Okay, please, thumbs up if you think the section was impactful and you don't have a question. Can you please give a thumbs up so that we'll move on? Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. So what we have is thumbs up. What means that means the section was, of course, insightful. Okay, right about now, you should receive the link, the attendance link, for us to please ensure you fill in the attendance. It's very, very, very important we all sign our attendance before we log out. While on that, I would like to invite Mrs. Tosin. I don't know if she's on the call. Mrs. Tosin, are you here with us for her closing remark? Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Do you mean Toyin? Is it Toyin you're asking?
Okay, yeah, Mrs. Toyin. I'm trying to...
Toyin, I don't think Toyin is on the... Toyin, are you on the call? I'm not too sure.
No, she's not.
Okay. Someone is asking for a registration link. Can we have the registration link, please? I'm sorry, the attendance link, rather.
That will be dropped right away.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Michael Ogu, are you on the call for your closing remarks?
I don't think Mike is on the call. Let me see who's on the call. Is Lanre on the call?
Yeah, I think he was the call.
He was on the call. I think he has left. Anyway, maybe you want to call on. I'm trying to find someone on the call who's maybe a member of Mancam. Excuse me, please. Oh, really? Maybe you want to beckon to someone in the learning and development team, and that will be it, so that we can just end the session and go have a very beautiful evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been of value to you. I hope that you've also learned something. And I believe that whatever we've discussed today, you are going to take it further in starting from wherever you are, and then building on it. Okay. Let me just find. I don't have the attendance link. Does anybody have the attendance link? Any member of the L&D team? Yay! Thank you, Z. Thank you, Z. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, Tolu. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Please just give me some few minutes. I'm trying to reach out to Toyin so we could share the attendance sheet, so we could continue with our questions if we have any. or just a recap of your training. A recap, please, in the next few minutes. We'll share the attendance link. Thank you.
All right. So I'm sure that from the conversation that we had today, we're basically able to define what D&I means. And there are several definitions, but in simple terms, diversity is who is represented. Inclusion is to the how, right? The how they experience. Then we looked at the different barriers to diversity. We looked at unconscious bias and stereotypes, lack of weak leadership, lack of diversity in leadership. We looked at the lack of diversity in recruitment. We looked at also overcoming the different barriers, right? Even for inclusion, we looked at empty rhetoric where there's just words. When there is no room also for dissenting opinions, there should be, again, this is a bane. Yes, you will get the slides. I will send the slide to the committee, to the team, and then they will share with everybody. It's very easy. Yeah. I was saying that one of the things we need to be able to help even in different teams, depending on the kind of organization we work, is to allow for opinions, dissenting opinions. If there isn't a room for dissenting opinions, then inclusion really would not happen. Another thing we also want to ensure is that we have some sort of psychological safety in a different organization. I think I might not be entirely right, okay, and I know that organizations are different, but I've seen that where there is a culture of respect, where people feel respected, like we said in our introduction, where people feel respected, valued, supported, there will be some level of inclusion in that place. With regarding to formality now, I have also observed in certain organizations where names are on the first, where the culture is on a first name basis, they have observed some level of inclusion, because ordinarily, if ordinarily maybe you are in your 50s and I'm in my 30s, or someone is in their 20s, there is that. Olamide, actually, I see you. I'm going to call you very soon. There is that. There could be that reservation, or some laid-back attitude in coming to speak to someone who's in their 50s and all of that. But if the culture, remember I said that assessing and defining your organization, what's the word now? Culture. So certain organizations where that first name basis is there, it helps people that barrier first is there. So I don't need to start saying, Mr. Daniel. Some people say, Chief Daniel. You need to call me Dr. Daniel, and all of that. It helps, not entirely, but you help people in scaling through that. Maybe that could be the first level. Okay, so recently in my organization, and I can say because it's something that is going to be public, but in my organization, we recently had a new senior executive join us, like in the function of a group chief operating officer. And then the first day, this week we're having the onboarding, and I have the privilege with another colleague of mine doing the onboarding for this particular person. And it starts by saying, hey, all of these things you're calling me, Mr. Larry, stop it. Can you just call me Larry? And I could relate with that because I'm coming from an environment where we do first name basis. But it was just this week, the conversation is flowing and all of that, where we could just have Larry. Do you get it? It will be different, or it could be different in some organizations where you have to do most Mr. Uncle, Doctor. It could be tiring. But yeah, Olamide, your hand is raised. You want to say something, or mute yourself, please?
Hi, Tolu.
Hi,
Hello,
Chima.
Tolu. Yes, so we have issues accessing the attendance link. So what I have advised via the chat box is that everybody writes their full names. Yes, and I'll take up the attendance from there. So please, we'll be rounding off in the next few minutes, like say 3 minutes. Yes, it's been an awesome session already. So let's just round up in the next 3 minutes while everyone puts their attendance. Yes, thank you so much, Tolu.
All right, thank you. Please put your names as attendance. Thank you so much, Choma, for that. I guess Olamide has nothing to say anymore. Yeah, so basically, I'm just saying you do. All right, please go ahead, Olamide.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. This has been an awesome section. So, one, based on the last line of thought you were treading, I just had a question and also a contribution, and also, okay, so I joined an organization probably. Okay, let me rephrase. Okay, the organization I currently work in, when I joined, I came as a first name basis because I believe as an HR, right, you shouldn't, the moment you start doing Mr. This and that, it kind of places you on a pedestal that you cannot, especially when people are at a certain management, Mancom and all of those things. So, but my MD immediately clamped me down on that. And no, you can't call this person by the name. You can't this, you can't that. So, but I spent 4 years and it's been, I feel I should have actually done the first name basis, because it would have given me more power and place to act on that. So I that was just one thing I wanted to say that. Then the other thing was, okay, so last year while I was preparing updates and new policies for the new year, so I had a conversation with my MD on diversity and inclusion, and immediately he said something, no, I'm not doing all this thing. If it is you bringing gay, you putting policy that will enable sexual preferences, right? I said, no, so I just wanted to touch base on that, because we had a lot of back and forth that no, it's not about that, but we want to have policy that is even open. We want to look at skills and all of that. In your experience, you want to touch base on this, on how best could I have handled this? And should we open the policy up for inclusion of, looking at the fact that Nigeria is not officially a country that allows all of this for people to dress in a certain way, for you to cross-dressing. Okay, they're not saying so much, but it's so everywhere you turn to, you see it and all of those things. So what should we do as an HR? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. So for the first one, the first question, which is around, or the things you said around first name basis, the thing is, let me just also balance it in the sense that we can't, by virtue of the kind of organization or the country we live in, you can't all have everybody working maybe on first name, because of how certain organizations are and the nuances of certain generations and how some companies have started and how they work. You won't probably be able to do that, right? So first is to just understand the context of the organization, right? Understand the context of the organization, and then build a business case for the first name basis. Guess what? They will throw it out of the window. They will come back in the next 2 years when the dinosaurs are out of the workforce, or where certain people are already resigning, or when they begin to see that you are not able to attract Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, and then you have people who are only, when the testosterone level in the organization as far as demographics is concerned is high, then they will tell you, sorry, if you guys want us to start hiring people or into our company, people are not coming to our company. Why? Because you guys are too tight. By the time they begin to see that, maybe 2 years later, they would dust that same business case off the shelf and agree with it. But as it is today, in practice, some organizations will probably not allow you, and it's a function of it's a function of background, it's a function of upbringing, how they were brought up. I couldn't just believe, people could just believe that you come and slam your first name on me, right? But again, other things, for example, around respect. Is there respect in the organization? Is that respect, is it action? Is it riddled in through how the organization work? Right? You and I both call Buhari Tinubu, you slam the first name on them today. You even call Joe Biden by name. And you call certain people certain names today, but when it comes to certain people in the organization, they will feel like it's a right. Like, oh, don't call me this, like your name is so and so. But again, like I said, it's a function of the organization. It will have to do with the leadership. If the leadership doesn't feel that way, then that's not it. Maybe for certain of them, then leave them. Maybe from certain people, they are open to calling them by name. I couldn't care less what anybody calls me. I'm in the organization to help the organization. After that, I'm home. I'm doing other things. My life is, I have a very good and genuine life outside of the organization or the business. My life, your life do not revolve around the business. People need to know that and know that there's a life outside of whatever you do in the organization, right? I'm not going to see you tomorrow somewhere else and then be calling you Mr. So and so. Please, it's not going to happen. But maybe it will happen to certain people, but really, it's how you treat people when they're in the organization is how they will probably react to you, right? But let's leave all of that. So the second thing that you had is a conversation that maybe we'll not talk to, we probably will never end. Always treat it around the context of the organization, especially what your CEO wants. And you can only be able to bring it up one, maybe, okay, it doesn't fly this year, bring it up another time, bring it up another time. But when you're bringing it up, do you have those diversity metrics? Are people leaving because certain people, you just have certain generation in the organization? When you bring all of those data together to paint a picture, say, the reason why people are leaving organizations is because they are only baby boomers, so they can't see their mates around, or they feel like this person is just being too harsh the way they talk to them, or they can't use first name basis and all of that, But it's not also that the first name basis should be used as an overall. But in Africa, we have a culture where it's a culture rooted in respect, and I believe especially personally in respecting elders, right? Respecting people, whether they are older or younger, respect people and put the same level of respect you also will be accorded to them. So it's not whether they are older than you are or you're in a senior position. It's more about how you see them, the value. I always do say that permit me to say this, nationally as a country, I always see a lot of things around national, right? I see them in the spectrum of national. Nationally, we do not have a very healthy sense of value on people. And because of that, it also trickled down to how organizations also place value and how that is being actioned or being dimensioned in our organization. So the second thing you're saying, as far as diversity is concerned, and what should you do? As far as the Federal Republic of Nigeria is today, we do not have the gender for Nigeria today by the Federal Republic of Nigeria is male and female. Any other thing is contrary to the legal imperatives of our constitution. So I'm not going to accept any other thing aside from male and female. Yes, I know companies are doing it and accepting binary. They're trying to be woke. I'm going to operate within the legal framework of the Federal Republic Constitution, which recognizes only two gender, the male and female, right? You might now want to bring some diversity, maybe ethnically, in your policy. Another thing from what you said is you need to first off have a conversation with your director, your managing director, or your CEO, and then bring a lot of education for him and to the leadership. Let him even see what diversity and inclusion means today. Now, it's not about the sexual orientation. Remove sexual orientation from it if you're in Nigeria, not outside of the world. If you're in Europe and Africa or globally, that will not play out. But in Nigeria today, help him to see other things as far as diversity is concerned, right? Because the way you will catch, so let me give an example. Very, very good example I believe will help. Right now, it's for those who are, right, for those who are, for the religious, I'm going to use this word now. For the religious diversity in organizations, we would have atheists, we would have Muslims, and we would have Christians, right? We could have people who are traditional worshippers, but probably they're not represented. God help them, right? Really, I've not ever seen anybody saying they're traditional. There could be, I'm sure they are, but we'll predominantly have male, we'll have Christians and Muslims, right? Right now, the religious Christian body is observing Lent. So the question is right now, what is your organization doing in terms of how is your organization going to look at the Christian religious space or Christian religious diversity in the organization? Because there could be people who are religiously Christians, right? But they are not the general Christians. They could be Mormons, right? There could be Jehovah's Witnesses, right? And all of that. How do you, right? Thank you. How do you couch that in your diversity, right? You need to be able to step back and not just think about that alone. Very soon in next month, there will be the Lent thing for the Muslims. How has your diversity and inclusion policy be able to capture all of that, right? So those are the things you need to step out from it and look at it in a different dimensions and be able to look at, okay, let's look at it properly, from religion, from this aspect, from ethnic, how we couch it, how our messaging communication, internal communication goes out. Does it just capture just more masculinity in the conversation, in the communication, or does it also favor women in how we message? As simple as even in your internal communication, the diversity you can also see that. So yeah, I hope I've been able to say a few things. Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi, FCIPM, I believe, sir, your hand is raised. You have the floor.
Oh, thank you very much, Tolu, and good evening, everyone. I've tried to resist the temptation in jumping into this conversation, but for the purpose of context, there's a need for us to understand that the issue of diversity and inclusion is as wide as we have different countries, race, and ethnic groups across the world. What is important really is for us to understand the maturity stage, of our organization, but most importantly, what is the legal framework in your area, where your organization is situated? Because everything that you do, there are so many things that are nice to have when we begin to talk about diversity and inclusion. There's a lot of things that are nice to have because, again, it's coming from the foreign context, okay, to this part of the world. And there are some things that you cannot cross the line in this part of the world, even when no matter how much you want to be an advocate of inclusion and diversity. So just as Tolu said, the first thing is, what is the law of the country where your organization is practicing? For people who are practicing within a multinational environment, even in multinational context, if your head office is situated in Europe, for example, and the company's policy generally says, there is room for binary, same-sex marriage, all of those things. The moment your organization decides to site a location in Nigeria, for example, that company policy will become illegal in a place like Nigeria, for example, where the law says that there is nothing like same-sex marriage. It is male and female. So even if you become an advocate of diversity, of same-sex marriage, all of those things, it's not going to happen. Otherwise, it is your company, your organization, that will need to relocate their business from that environment. We must understand those concepts. Then again, most of the times within the African context, for example, when we talk diversity and inclusion, it's usually more about the area of the gender and also in the area of these people with special abilities that we call disabilities. That's actually the maturity stage that we have right now. Let's not kid ourselves and begin to get over ourselves in terms of, all other. Many organizations, the first thing we ask right now today is, how does this contribute to revenue, to the bottom line of the company that you are working for? So that HR people, you don't begin to just drive initiatives that are just nice to have, but do not actually sit at the center point of what our company is dealing with right now. If your company is dealing with just trying to survive within the economic situation right now, nobody's going to be looking at your data and your statistics on diversity and inclusion. Let's not kid ourselves. Those are honest truths, frankly speaking. Nobody's going to bother about how many male and females that you're having in your system. If you have all male, 100% of male, and they are delivering, your company they are meeting and surpassing their revenue every time, it will be hard for you to begin to go and be preaching as HR to your management that you want to have a gender balance or anything. For example, people work in an organization whereby naturally the geographical location skews the gender conversation towards a particular gender. Even the nature of the job itself. For instance, if you work in a security outfit, for example, you will not be pushing a 50-50 gender ratio in terms of staffing. If you work in manufacturing environment, the same thing. You may be trying to hire a 80-20 or a 70-30, things like that. So we must understand that even the question is, who defines what should be the standard in different climes? So we must understand that as wide as this topic is, we must be able to state things in context. Cross-dressing all of those things, you don't want to try that in a Nigerian organization. Because in the first instance, even if your company is trying to promote it, they are violating the law of the land. And if they get to the regulatory body, the company could be shut down on account of that. It's not a matter what your global policy is saying. So we must just understand things from that perspective, just to add the feel of that confusion, to put that word of caution out there, that there's things that are nice to have, but what is the maturity stage in which we are as a country, as a people? That does not mean about being backward or being forward. No, it has nothing to do with that. If you go to China now, there are a lot of things that you cannot even try in China, in Japan. There are things that you cannot try. And you cannot in any way say that, in terms of, people who are out there, China, America today, China has one of the biggest economy in the world, a lot of production activities going on there and all of those things. And they have their rules and guidelines. If you must operate in their country, you must follow their laws. You can't bring your American gender, whatever, all of those. You can't bring it there. They will tell you, go to where you want to. You must operate here. You operate within our laws. So, in preaching the the diversity story and the vision story, let us always remember that we situate within the context of the legal framework and the maturity level in which the environment we are, practicing is, and of course our organization. Thank you very much. Thanks, Tolu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adeyemi, FCIBM. Thank you. Very spot on contribution. Thank you so much. Thank you. I believe that we've learned, situate context, legal framework context. And again, like you said, you must be able to tie it to your bottom line, because it's not just like having niceties, like nice to have. You must be able to drive what that means and what it looks like. How is that adding to your bottom line at the end of the day? Thank you. I believe, Chuma or Beauty, this is where we'll finally have to draw the curtain. Thank you for spending 2 hours, 12 minutes, if I'm right, with us. Looking forward to having a wonderful time at the next class. I don't know when that will be. Chuma, am I good to say goodbye to everyone, or do you want to just do the honors?
Thank you so much, Mr. Tolu. I'm still here. Yes. So I'm going to call on Mrs. Shola for a closing remark, then we can go. Mrs. Shola, please.
All right. Thank you very much, Beauty. Tolu, thank you so much for the very insightful section. Then, Mr. Adeyemi, thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. As we all know that we are tribe of shameless learner. So we'll see ourselves next week, Saturday, on a very insightful topic again, still on workplace as a topic for the month. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shola. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening, your morning, your afternoon, wherever you're joining from. Philip, I see you. Philip, well done. Agogo. Anita. My autopilot is here too. Ronke Patrick, Abiola, Chefonia.
Well done, sir.
Hey, Agogo. Well done.
Yeah. Plenty lot
All right,
today.
everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening and take care.